Palando!
Holding out for Palando.
You were voting for the other guy.
Oh, that's right. I mean, Alatar. Alatar.
Hey everybody, it's Bina 007 back for another Vassals of Kingsgrave podcast on the Rings of Power. And today we're going to be discussing episode 3 of what I presume will be one of many seasons. And we could potentially spoil anything in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien or any of his published, well, not his published, any of the adaptations of his works. I am joined today by Mary.
I'm Mary here, and Nymeria on Discord.
By Michael. By Michael.
Hey, Khal Wadege on Discord.
By Matt.
Varley on the forums.
And by Alix.
Hi, Aiwendil on the forums.
Do you feel finally that your forum name finds its appropriate home?
Yes. Well, it was fun to be on the Silmarillion cast with that name too.
Fantastic. Well, welcome back, Aiwendil, after a long hiatus, and we welcome Jock.
Jock probably not as good suited as Alix is for this podcast, but I'll try my best with my only Peter Jackson level of lore.
Okay, cool. Right, and we will start by giving our lemon cake ratings or our Rings of Power ratings. We are not going to do them out of 19 as Amber Rocks tried to last time because it's impossible to figure out what people think of this week's episode. Let's go in the same order. So let's start again with Mary. How did you find episode 3, Mary?
Really enjoyed it. I love Numenor. I'm really here for this. So I guess 4. Yeah, 4. I'm willing to to have something mind blowing to go up to 5, but I love being in this universe again, and it all looks gorgeous, and that's really why I'm there. So 4 out of 5, I should say.
Absolutely brilliant. Michael, how about you?
I'll give this 2.5 out of 5 Rings of Power.
Whoa.
I would say, yeah. Basically what I said last time, where it looks great, amazing production values in costume design. I just wish the dialogue was better and felt less cheap. A lot of cheap conflict, in my opinion.
Okay, I've got this fear that Matt could go even lower than you, but Varley, how are you feeling?
I didn't hate it, but I just love being in this world, and I think it almost insists upon itself. Like, if you don't know Tolkien's works, you'd probably be like, what the fuck is happening? I love Numenor. I think that's what the series is actually building, and House of the Dragon is a little model of it. Yeah, I think the orc, elf, slave labor camp was just clunky, and the reading of the Hobbit names that didn't make it was, maybe it's just the time of the year, but it reminded me of the 9/11 ceremonies that happen around this time of year.
Welcome, Teddard. How are you, and what is your lemon cake rating out of 5 for this episode?
Hello. That's a very good question. I'd say 4 lemon cakes. I like the Numenor stuff. Hobbsy stuff was a bit weird. I actually liked the Arondir stuff. I think that was quite good. That was about it.
Happy customer. How about you, Jock? How many lemon cakes would you give this?
I'd give it 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it, even though I don't really know any of the history or stuff. So I also find it really good to pair with House of the Dragon with their more sort of Game of Thrones style George R. R. Martin greyish postmodern cultural characters with the much more comfortable sort of modernist characters of Rings of Power. Quite like the dialogue in a bit of a contrary way, because I feel like it helps make it feel like a proper alien sort of world, more fantasy world, and it combined with the visuals it has quite an effect and creating a fantasy environment for me.
Great, well, that's good to hear. And Alix, how about you? And maybe you can give us your impression of 1, 2, and 3. So did you like 3, and also did you think better or worse than the opening week's episodes?
Yeah, so I really liked the first 2 episodes. I would have given them 4 out of 5 each. And this one, I'm still enjoying it, but I'd probably give it 3.5. I was excited to be a casual viewer of the show, and this episode kind of brought out some nitpicky side of me that I wasn't really planning on having, but I'm still excited to watch, and I like Numenor, and we'll probably get more into the details later.
Great. Well, I come at this, as you all know, with very little Silmarillion knowledge, so I am more of a casual viewer, but I continue to really enjoy it. I love the visuals. I just love being in this world. I don't have enough knowledge to be nitpicky, and maybe I watched this on the morning after the death of Her Majesty the Queen, so I was in a very emotional state. And so all the emotional stuff really resonated with me. So even the proto-hobbits saying no one's left behind and we wait for them really affected me. Like I was profoundly moved. And I love Numenor, and I particularly loved Elendil. I don't know why. It's like a Faramir hangover. I seem to have the hots for Numenorian
Me too.
blokes.
Me too.
Oh.
I'm right there with you on the Elendil crush.
And I've since cyberstalked him, and it's the same with the guy who plays Faramir. Like in real life, with real clothes and stuff, I don't find them hot at all. But somehow in character. So there you go. So I'll watch if for nothing else. So we've got a bit of a mix in reviews. That's good. I know that hashtag Reg hated it, and even Amberox didn't really seem to like it. So definite strife. But I can take it as read that we all still love the visuals and the costumes. So before we get into the sort of the different character threads and how the narrative unfolded, maybe just a few words on Numenor, because that was obviously the big new setting with new characters. For those of you who are lore masters or otherwise, how did you find this vision of Numenor the first time you've seen this on screen?
Okay, I don't know if I qualify as lore master, but let's go. I really like how it looks. It's gorgeous. I love the big stone heads. That's like a really Numenorian thing that we find later in Gondor with the Argonath and all these Lord of the Rings settings. So it's really nice to see like where they originated from. The palace has sort of a Minas Tirith by the sea feel, which I quite like. And I like the focus on the sea and the ships are beautiful too. Because they're supposed to be a maritime force. And so I like that we really see that side of it.
Yeah, anyone else want to go, or anyone else disappointed? I think maybe was it hashtag Greg saying maybe it wasn't big enough or grand enough, but to me the scale of it felt right, because it's meant to be like Bravos, isn't it? It's an island thrown up in the middle of the ocean as a gift. So I felt the scale looked right, and I loved, as you said, Alix, the kind of the pre-architecture of what we'll then come to see in things like the Argonath and Minas Tirith. These kind of hints at a style I thought was really well done. Anyone else?
So as I understood it, it's you have the central capital Numenor city, and then you have these vast tracts of land that are expanding out in 5 ways, which we saw them take like horseback rides to. So I didn't find it like small or underwhelming in any matter. And also when you just look at the main Numenor city, it's big. Like it's got big ass statues, and it just I have nothing else to say than it was really big.
And I kind of take issue with the proto rock work, like you said. This is them at the height of their power, and what they did was they took a big time jump, because they reference Alfarazan, who's the last king of Numenor, and he's going to be he's going to be the what? Sorry. So in theory, Sauron should be in that tower room, whispering dark secrets into his ear and telling him to, conquer the band of the Valar.
I am no lore master, but in defense of the writers, he's not the king yet. There's currently a queen regent on the throne, and he's not yet the king to have things whispered in his ears, right? But Alix, do you have issues?
Well, so from the first episodes, I had the feeling we were at the beginning of the Second Age, right? Because the rings haven't been forged yet. Sauron's not around, really. It's all still, like, there's still a lot to happen before we get to the fall of Numenor. And now that we're Numenor, Ar-Pharazôn's around, Elendil's around, Isildur's around, so that means that's the end the Numenor timeline, and I don't really see how we can have all the action with Sauron, the rings, and all of that fit into an
Yeah, I agree. I think it would have
lifespan.
been better for the writers to, if it's going to go seasons and seasons, it would have been better to like do it during the rule of like Tar Palantir, where he's trying to like reconcile the men of Numenor and the elves, and it doesn't really work. And then you could finally see like the gradual decline and like the ban of elves entering Numenor and stuff like that. I think it would have been. I feel like now they have to rush through everything, and it's just not gonna. It's going to be like Game of Thrones where Littlefinger is zooming off to multiple places in a day or two.
I mean, they don't necessarily have to rush. Like, I get that in the book it happens over centuries, but here it can still happen over like 30 years or something like that. Because I think they just want to have one generations in the humans part of the cast instead of having 4 or 5. Like it would have maybe made more sense, but it would have been harder to make clear to the public, I guess, to have like part of the actors that don't age and the rest of them actually aging. So I guess that's why they chose to do that. I think it can still work. I understand why it's not ideal for when you're attached to how it happens, but I think it can still work.
My argument against that would be that they're introducing Halbrand, who's a quote dark man, because he comes from the people that followed Morgoth. So he doesn't have an extended life like the Numenorians do. So you could say like Elpharazon, I think, lives to like 250 or 300 years old and only attacks the Valar in the very end of his life, obviously. But what will Halbrand do? We'll just see him die. Like
I mean,
even if it takes 30 years, what's he going to do? Be old and feeble and trying to?
Well, he's got to
Yeah.
become a ring wraith in the next 30 years. Or,
Oh, cool.
but still, if it's like, let's say 25 right now and it happens over 25 years, it's still quite a long time to show on TV, I think, and it kind of works with the one actor still. So I mean, I think I understand the reasoning behind having everything condensed into an easier timeline for them.
In terms
I mean,
of the
just
acceleration, sorry, you can see the two factions of the King's Men versus the Elf Friends appear to have been like very settled, where the King's Men have almost complete dominance over Numenor, and they've got to the point where they're refusing all elven ships and have for several generations. Now, I will appeal to lore masters here because, as I understood it, I don't think tensions between the men and the elves ever rose to this level, where there was a complete embargo on any elves entering, and I would question why they're choosing to have this decision of such hostility, because this is my problem with some of the episode, is I don't think it leads to any inspired choices, just cheap drama, in my opinion.
So there was a ban on elves, and that's why it's important. They even mentioned in the show that Elendil lives in the west, and it was whispered that his house still had interactions with elves that are coming from the Lonely Island. There was the reason for the ban was because of Sauron's whispering dark secrets into the ruler's minds.
but
Minds?
Sauron
Ears.
isn't here
He
yet.
whispers secrets in the ears. But he is. He has to be. And I think what we'll probably
Oh, so you
see
think
is
Sauron's in Numenor currently, and we just haven't seen him?
Yeah, there's
yes.
still
I think
that
he'll probably be introduced.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
So there's that albino guy from the trailers. We haven't seen him yet, so that's probably him.
I haven't seen the trailers.
Well, I would suspect that. I really like your Halbrand's ring wraith thing. I suspect that we might see Sauron in the next episode, and he going to Halbrand in the jail or whatever.
I think
So-
we can still have something with like it's been going on for a while in Numenor that Sauron has been there with an influence, and he hasn't had that influence in Middle Earth. So someone like Galadriel would still be like, I feel like evil is not gone. but I don't really see it yet. And they can have, like, maybe they shifted a bit of the Numenor timeline, and it still has been going on for a while. I mean, that could work as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I mean, right now
if
he's going to be
Sauron's in
fair.
Numenor, who's stirring shit up in the south? Like, who's with the orc?
Sauron.
Sauron is everywhere all at once.
So he has Littlefinger's time traveling machine or
He's a
teleportation
Maiar.
thingy.
Yeah.
Well, so is Gandalf, and he needs
Still has to go
a couple
places.
days to get on his
Yeah.
feet whenever that happens.
So remember that Sauron hasn't declared himself as Sauron yet. He's still disguised as Anatar. So he'll expose himself as Sauron later when the One Ring is forged.
Yeah, sure, but he still has to get to the part where he forges the ring.
I think is the shadowy jumping around a little bit. We will come back to Numenor because there's more to discuss there. But who do you think is, well, we're just doing, identities of people. So I think Halbrand, Ringwraith, good call. Who do you think is the shadowy figure at the end of the Orc prison break episode that we see hoving into view? Is that Sauron yet to be incorporated into whatever fair figure that will manipulate Pharazôn, or something else? What's the theory?
He looked relatively fair of face, like it wasn't a clear shot of whoever this person was. So that was my assumption, the character that they're calling Adar. But what does everyone else think?
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm like misremembering timelines because I think Pharazôn comes, defeats Sauron, brings him back in chains, and then Sauron starts whispering shit into his ears, and then they break the band. So
yeah, that's
so it
what
could be
happens in
Sauron.
the official lore timeline. But I
Right.
think something obviously different is happening here. It would seem.
Yes. I think I watched the video. Like Adar means father in like one of the Elvish languages or something, but that's probably not much of a clue.
Okay.
Considering
sorry.
But considering that was what the episode was called, and there was like lots of daddy issues going around, so I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get back to Numenor and get into Numenor. We head back to the proto-hobbits and the prison break. So how did you all find the storytelling in Numenor? I know that, Michael, you said you found it too crude to have this very hardcore division between both elves and Numenorians, but also within the Numenorians, it feels like the factions are pretty hard done by. It kind of felt strange to me that Elendil, with his very on-point elf friend name, that somehow I didn't really understand if they were so anti-elf how the people who still like and keep faith with the elves can rise to positions of power or military importance like Elendil. And also that they deposed a king, but he's still hanging around in a tower somewhere. So that I just didn't really understand how that works because they seem so militant, but apparently some coup d'etats happened. You all who've read the books, Wagwan, what's going on in that?
I have to read the Akalabeth again because I forget because I think Pharazôn takes the daughter that was supposed to be ruler to wife against her will, and that was how he seized power. Or maybe there was a guy before him. I can't remember.
So who's the Queen Regent, or is she just made up for the TV show?
She's just a woke Queen Regent. I don't know.
Yeah, I think she's made up because
Who are we talking about? Nymeria.
the Queen Regent.
Yeah, no, she's
show.
she's a character in the story. I remember.
Or has our Pharazôn not usurped yet? No, but he has because there's a former king.
I think
he's
no, she's Queen Regent, but he's like a vizier character. So you should always be suspicious of those guys.
Sure.
Yeah, so we have to see him manipulated by Sauron maybe to overthrow her and then the Doom of Numenor, I guess. Makes sense. So what's she like in the books, like Teddard? Is she like a big character or do we not see much of her? Because she's
we don't see much of Numenor.
Oh, okay.
Ever, because it's all just the appendices and the Akalabeth. So it's mostly just like timelines and such became king and then was followed by such and such. And
so there was me naively thinking that the fall of Numenor would be like a big part of the Silmarillion.
No, they don't really have like personalities.
Help me get my genealogy right. Who's the guy that they overthrew and who's not king anymore?
Tar Palantir.
Right. And the shady advisor that looks like he's going to be a bad guy is actually going to be a bad guy. That's it.
Farazon, yeah. So
Okay, yeah.
I'm definitely not. This is definitely off the top of my head, and I'm definitely not reading this.
Yeah. Why is Talmiriel, why is she Queen Regent and not just Queen?
Well, because I guess they're sort of doing, he's crazy and we can't, and he can't rule. Because this happened to George III, and his son was regent.
Did that happen to like Henry VI too, or something? Didn't he go mute or something?
Great. I understand now. Thanks.
So concerning the interactions that we see in Numenor between Galadriel and the Queen Regent, I found the overt hostilities to be very strange. Just because they seem to be refusing to even give transport to Galadriel back to Middle-earth, like that was seemingly forbidden that they would do anything. So the implication is either they're going to keep her there for a prisoner for the rest of her life, or they're just going to kill her, which would seem very bizarre. They're not going to use her for like hostage purposes. It struck me as you have an analogy to like the Cold War between, the West and the USSR, and you've now just recovered this very powerful or important agent, and you're not even gonna like try and use it for diplomatic potential. I found that weird. I found it very strange.
Yeah, I don't get that either. You'd figure they'd be like, we don't want you on this island, we're putting you on this immediately and get you the fuck out of here.
Yeah, don't let the door kick you on the back or anything. And then equally, Halbrand having to be the voice of reason amongst these
Like
two very regal ladies.
Gonna listen to him. Yeah, I mean that was just laughable, wasn't it? And also that someone he's just like wandering around trying to go to forges and like offer his services. The whole thing was very badly written, and the less said about it, the better. Other than just, I guess, to clumsily establish that he's into creating things. Maybe we should talk about the ride to the House of Law, which I found utterly beautiful to see Galadriel finally happy and on horseback, but Amber found incredibly cheesy. How did you feel about that?
That was so cheesy.
It was, but like the slow motion was a bit too much. But like
it was way too slow.
It was way too slow.
I would get slow motion ride where you actually see the horse moving, but this was just like,
especially because it's like a beautiful thing about horses is how they move. And on that note, thank God, either they did a much better job than in The Hobbit, or they actually used real horses, which was like one of my main things about The Hobbit. Like I was really annoyed at that they used very terrible CGI horses where they could have used real ones, like in The Lord of the Rings. So yay, thank you.
Well, it looks like they were definitely real horses. I think I'm the only one who found that beautiful then. I thought it was just nice to see Galadriel happy on horseback.
I thought the landscape shots and the zooming in was quite good, but then like the cheesy grin like sort of paused on. I found that a bit weird.
Oh, okay. Well, I am genuinely the only one who likes this then.
As long as Galadriel isn't staring daggers at everyone else, which she does for about 95% of all her screen time, I'm also happy. So I agree with you, Bina.
Yeah, she's not the happiest, most charming of people. Whereas like old Galadriel that we see in Lord of the Rings is so beautiful and fair and charming and never has to demand angrily anything. But I guess that's a long time to come in the future.
I find this Galadriel very impatient to for an elf, because like she gets to Numenor and she wants to leave within like 5 hours. There's no time to lose. Whereas when you see elves in other contexts, like Elrond, he's like, oh, it's been 20 years. That was a fun little time. And even like when Gandalf comes back to see Frodo about the ring, it's like 17 years later. There's this sense that for elves and other immortals that they don't have the same relationship to time as mortals, but in the case of Galadriel, she's like the most impatient character of all. in this episode,
Hmm.
which I find a bit weird.
Yeah, and like you say,
Also,
predicts what they were at pains to establish in Khazad Dûm, the idea that you can
yeah,
unintentionally hurt people by not taking time seriously or mortally. And yet here she is always rushing about. If this is a centuries-old plan to sort of have a hiding place in the Southlands, then 10 minutes isn't gonna worry you. But it was a nice touch, wasn't it?
exactly.
This idea that Elendil would be sort of, or that she would see this library as something made by an old friend, even though it's depicted kind of in stained glass from decades ago or centuries ago. To Elendil, I think is really nice, given that he is
Yeah.
also longer lived than men. That was a nice touch,
Yeah.
although I should point out on behalf of #Greg, he doesn't understand how those guys are still on scrolls, but the proto-hobbits already have a book.
Fair.
But I just
Scrolls
love
No,
are
it.
magical and wise, and they denote wisdom. So
It was beautiful. Any depiction of a lovely library with old scrolls, I'm just so happy about.
same. I
Anything
think
else
with
you want to say?
Galadriel, they're trying to get us to feel some sense of urgency about evil rising, and they're doing it by making her very impatient and anxious, and it's not working very well. I agree, because it is out of character for an elf, and like they could have her be very like worried about things without being too impatient like she is now, and I think that they're going a little over the top with her with her impatience. Like, it has to happen now. It's we are in grave danger right this second, and that doesn't really work with the quietly growing evil thing that should be happening.
where she just stares off across the sea and we can see the worry on her face or something like that would, I think, be a much better characterization of her concern. That's how I would write the show when I may be a writer.
I do wonder if they should have cast her with someone slightly older, because she
Well,
does have that sort of impetuosity of youth about her.
yeah, that's weird too, right? Like, she does have a weird youthiness to her, which like Elrond doesn't have, for instance, and that changes the dynamic between the two, and between how it's not how it should be, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone got anything else to say about Numenor and all things Numenorian, apart from the hotness of Elendil?
It's like that.
Why do they have a table that only has the Southlands on it?
Does Elendil, do we see Isildur's sister? Is she a character that exists in the book? I thought that was all quite sweet.
No,
Maybe.
she's
No,
made up.
Isildur and Anarion were the only two
they're-
issues of Elendil that are spoken about.
Okay.
But the actress that plays her is very attractive, so I'm okay with it.
Hubba hubba.
Sorry, such a dude. Such a bro
I
thing
took
to
it.
say.
I took it there first. I objectified first. Don't worry.
And
or
she's
me.
going to be a builder, apparently.
Yeah, which is
Yeah,
very cool.
she got into builder college. That's great.
Good for her.
Yeah. I thought it was quite nice to see a sort of normal family interaction there. It's not one that I consider typical of Lord of the Rings or fantasy worlds. It was quite domestic and bourgeois. Where's the mum, though?
She died in childbirth, of course.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Disney. So Disney. And yet creating an opening for me, so it's all good.
I mean, that's the easiest way to just bring a little darkness in some characters while conveniently getting rid of another female character that doesn't exist in the book.
Yeah. Well, they brought a new one in. Right, shall we transition to the proto-hobbits, the Harfoots, to a scene where they are now going to make their great migration, which we are taken to believe happens every few seasons when they have, replenished their stocks. And that this is a hazardous thing, that people do die while making it, and it's especially risky to be put at the back of the caravan, and that the stranger is going to help the family that we have come to know and love from falling too far behind, and he's starting to in some way be able to communicate with Nori and indeed her sister. So how did I love this. I admit I watched this in a very, very sentimental mood, but I thought it was beautifully done, and what could have been very mawkish, the reading of the names, I thought was very sweet. So any thoughts and feelings on this?
So does anyone think the stranger is not Gandalf still with this time jump?
Palando!
Holding out for Palando.
You were voting for the other guy.
Oh, that's right. I mean, Alatar. Alatar.
Who are these people? Are they the Blue Wizards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah,
We would
I only know this
logically...
because of the last podcast. I did not know this by heart.
Yes, same.
I think the party line or the Vassals of Kingsgrave line is we would like them to be blue wizards because it would make more sense, but we recognise commercially they are more likely to be Gandalf. So.
Yeah.
right. Because the Blue Wizards were supposed to go like north over the mountains and then never heard of again.
They went
Oh.
east.
Oh, east over the mountains. Whatever.
Yeah.
You all cracked me up. No one cares. No one on the writing staff cares about this stuff. Anything to say about the Harfoots though?
I did actually find it weird, this whole reading of the names, and like I find it a bit weird that they are this very wholesome community on the one hand. They laugh and they have this weird flowers in their hair and everything. But also they leave people behind when they like cannot follow quickly enough. And I get that they're trying to they're trying to tell us that life in Middle Earth is dangerous. There are dangers and things out to kill you, and they've got to move, and they cannot afford to wait for people. But still, it feels like they're like, oh, we miss you, but also probably we might not wait for this one family tomorrow if they cannot follow. So that's weird to me.
It's a harsh utilitarian reality of what these journeys must have been like. It made me think a lot actually about the passage west in US history, and that must have been as harsh as it was in reality, that you love them and you love the community, and that the community must be greater than the individuals. So no, it didn't bother me too
Oh,
much.
you'll die of dysentery.
Oh, thank you for that visual, Matt.
That wasn't read out in the books, unfortunately.
But it also contrasts nicely with, when you come to the Shire in Lord of the Rings, which is this, and The Hobbit, it's this beautifully settled, peaceful, abundant, most of all safe place, which is why the scouring of the Shire is so horrible at the end. It's always seen as this haven, and I guess to me it was just contrasting with, before you get to the Shire, that there is this kind of into this generational trauma of having been nomads. Maybe I'm being too generous.
I think
I agree, Bina. I think you're right.
I think it makes sense, but what's bothering me is that they are also portrayed as like kind of goofy, and so there's this weird dissonance between them leaving people behind and also being these goofy characters.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Then again, I sort of feel maybe it's trying to add some depth, because I think even the hobbits can come across that way, can't they? And it's always the danger. I think that people always think the hobbits are just these kind of jolly fellows who smoke pipe weed and get concerned about second breakfast and have no real depth. And then similarly, or likewise, they think the elves are just these pure ethereal beings who never get rapey, pillagey, and never are angry and impatient like us. Like you have this vision of sort of Galadriel, whatever, from the films and the sort of the aged elves, and you forget that actually for much of their history they weren't these all powerful, all knowing, all good, all the time, boring, banal people. So yeah, maybe it's just the nature of fantasy.
Sure, and I agree that it's good that they are building this communities in like they have more depth than maybe they had in the books initially or in the first adaptations. But the specific point is with accidental death, that they are reading the names like these people were killed by wolves or stuff like that. That's all fine. It's more the kind of too harsh treatment of the Brandyfoot family that makes it weird.
Yeah, and there's Nori's friend, I forget her name, who apparently is an orphan, and like her whole family was part of the names that they read. And she's left by herself to carry her little carriage, and the community is there to remember her family but not there to support her through these new migrations. So I agree with you, Marie, that there's a dissonance between like the community spirit that they seem to have and their actions.
Yes, exactly.
Towards the weaker members of the community.
Yeah, and even the father who broke his leg, like surely there is another family with like one member of the family that's not needed, who's not needed to help with their own thing, and who can help this family. I mean, it's like, yeah, you broke your leg, just deal with it. We'll leave you alone to do that. That seems weird, but yeah, I guess I've said what I meant.
Yeah, I agree. It is a bit selectively compassionate, is maybe the word. Okay, well then let's move to the final location in this episode, which was the prison camp that our elf Hop has been sent to, being oppressed by the orcs to cut down a beautiful old tree. And then I think that the key point is at the end, there is this very shadowy figure that emerges, that could be Sauron in one of his guises or something else. What would you guys like to say about this part of the story?
I'm certainly not seeing the wisdom of the Eldar from some of these elf people. When that leader makes such a
No
stink
shit.
about cutting the tree down, and I was like, I'm just a stupid man, and I can tell you that you're going to get someone killed by, you can cut the tree down and feel bad about it, or you can get someone killed and then cut the tree down.
But
I just thought that was funny.
these guys, they're not like Eldar they're Sylvan elves, so they're basically like Legolas and all that, and they really love trees. So of course they're going to stand up for the tree.
They are woodland elves, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And also, like, they've been guarding the area for 80 years, and they never realized there was an entire network of tunnels being dug by the orcs during that time.
It's not like they're hard to spot. Yeah, and they're in a big tower, so they've got the perfect angle.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not entirely convinced by the plot line.
Yeah, I thought it was too clunky. I thought like maybe the ending scene was the only thing we had to see from that digging. I don't think we had to revisit it like 2 or 3 times like they did in the episode. I just didn't like it. And you're right, the leader was a fucking idiot. And yeah, it doesn't seem like the elves did a very good job at anything, huh?
They were very graceful when they were whipping those chains around. I did kind of like that. I was like, whoa, wacha, wacha.
Yeah, the fight scene was good. There's good action going on.
I don't know. I feel just like they keep on going to that well of like, like in the first episode when Galadriel ran up a sword blade. Like, we get it. Come on, stop it. And I felt like they were doing the same thing with the chains. Like, they're able to whip the chains just perfectly so they'd hit the elves, the orcs right in the face.
But they are elves.
I enjoy seeing their superhuman qualities, and in a way that distinguishes them from men and the other species or races. I would like more magic, actually. Perhaps some overt uses of it would be interesting.
Maybe you'll get it once Ranger kind of like finds himself a little bit more.
Yeah, he kind of made all the fires get a little brighter there for a second.
That was an interesting
magic
scene. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what was going on with those fires, but yeah, it was intriguing.
He couldn't put out the piece of paper that he lit on fire.
He doesn't have his staff, Alix.
Yeah.
So maybe we can sum up this episode as Elendil hot, Numenorians pig-headed, Galadriel hasty, which we know is a bad word from the Ents, Harfoots uncompassionate, elf cops dumb.
Yes.
It makes it sound a lot worse than it was. I enjoyed it. Like
visuals awesome, music great, Numenor wow.
I also like the visuals of the orcs. I think they look intimidating but not gross like Peter Jackson's orcs did, and I like how like their little tent thing is kind of handmade, and you see that there's this element of tribalism with the skulls and stuff. I like how the orcs look.
I like the detail.
Can I ask maybe a stupid question?
There are no stupid questions.
Oh, they are when they're coming from me. Who shot the elf with the arrow, and from what area were they shooting? And did I miss that, or was that ever explained?
There were 3 people on the distant horizon, I think, and they looked like the archers that had shot him.
Were they goblins? Were they orcs? I didn't understand how he suddenly had an arrow in him that wasn't fired by an orc.
I don't know
who
that was.
I thought hard to tell, yeah, who they were
Yeah.
exactly.
My initial thought was it was the men from the village that they came from, but then we don't see where who fired the arrows. So
The fletching was green. That's very important.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. But
Maybe there are dark men in the forest, and that's kind of setting up kid that gave blood to the sword or whatever in the next episode, maybe.
Yeah, there could be some evil men lurking around, I guess.
What, some ex-Morgoth worship or current Morgoth worshippers, I guess. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, I think that was a good episode. It gave us Numenor. It told us where we stood with the Numenorians, which was cool. Didn't really progress much else, but that's fine. We'll see where it goes next week. I remain hopeful. I think I'm enjoying this more than I am House of the Dragon, although it's not a
same,
competition.
definitely.
But I wasn't expecting that to be the case. But hey, it's great to have both right. What a time to be alive for a nerd.
Yeah,
and
I was so disappointing with the first season of The Wheel of Time that I really wasn't expecting much from Amazon on this, but I'm happy with it. And I wanted to say as well, I'm loving the music, and I think they're doing a very good job. And this is also a big part of my Lord of the Rings love is the music from the Peter Jackson's movies. So
Howard Shore's back.
he's only back for the main theme, not for
Yeah, the
the
rest
actual
is
music of the episodes. But
yeah, and it's interesting because I knew Bear McCreary from one of my all-time
Outlander.
favorite TV series, which is not Outlander. It's although I did quite like the first season of that. It was Battlestar Galactica, the re-up that took place.
Oh, right, it was him as well. Yeah.
Geez, 20 years ago now, so now I feel really old. But it's kind of funny hearing the music here because you do see some of the classic Bear McCreary rhythms and use of instruments, but with the Howard
Yeah.
Shore themes that he's reinterpreting. So for me, it's almost like the best of both because I love the classic Howard Shore, but because it's a different composer, it's different enough, but still somehow works. So I'm really enjoying the music a lot. So yeah.
Same, absolutely.
Okay, it seems like we're ending on a positive note, and that pleases me. So,
Good.
thank you very much for podcasting, everyone. I wasn't really planning on doing one, but I enjoyed the episode so much, and it was such a weird week. And I thought it would be good. It would stop me wallowing and watching the news on repeat of the Queen. So thank you for jumping on. It was very cheering, which I appreciate.
It's like a little Vox snuggle, you know?
I needed a little Voc audio hug this afternoon, so thank you for providing it.
Yay. Well, I gotta say, I'm really happy that I'm reconnecting with my nerd side these past few weeks with House of the Dragon and then this. So yay for Buck for bringing that into my life.
All right, boys and
Yeah.
girls, have a lovely rest of weekend, and I'll speak to, I guess, some of you on Monday for Wolfcast. All welcome.
Yeah.
See you then. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, Nina.
No worries.
Bye.
bye.
See you guys. Bye.
See ya.
Palando.
Holding out for Palando.
You were voting for the other guy.
Some nerd is listening to this screaming.
Oh, they're already screaming at our audio quality, so this is, whatever.
I mean, they might also scream at our counting of the rings because last week is like, wait, with the one ring that's 20, right? Why are we counting 19? So whatever, our math is not amazing either. So
Vassals of Kingsgrave, come for the math, stay for the dick jokes. I mean, I don't think math is ever really seen as our strong point on this podcast. If you're coming here for the math, you're going to be sadly disappointed, and you should definitely leave right now.